All right, perfect. And we are live again, back here with Cats and Coffee.
Hey, we're back, and we're back in my kitchen. I said we weren't going to be, but here we are.
That was a really quick turnaround. Really quick turnaround. I thought this was supposed to be, like a once every 3 months sort of thing, but we're just
You
quick.
know me, anything to get out of the office.
I know. Even if it's close. So what exactly, are you doing back in your kitchen?
Why am I back in my kitchen? Well, today's Cats and Coffee conversation is, I think, kind of a home-based conversation, right? Because we're talking about and celebrating one of our favorite holidays over here at Basepaws, National DNA
Please
Day.
say.
Was it Friday, right?
It is Friday on April 25th, actually. I believe that's a Saturday on there. Sorry about that. Friday or Saturday.
So we've got that coming up really soon. So we know
Yes.
it's DNA Day, and of course at Basepaws we are all about DNA, right? Like we're
Yes.
about cat health, we're about fun, but we're based on DNA.
We are. I mean, that's what brings all of us together. It allows us to learn more about the cats and also, look a little bit into not just their coat colors and their breeds, but also their health and genetic markers. But DNA is a very, very complex thing, but we want to share all of it. It's so exciting and so interesting. Just exactly how all of these things affect it. So, you know, one of the really exciting things that I think, well, I don't know, I'm going to let you introduce your experiment to see all about that.
Okay, well, we're going to save the details for the end as far as exactly what we're doing. And,
Mhm.
before we do that, I want to just take a quick second. It looks like we're having a little bit of technical issues. I'm not
Yeah,
sure they can see us on Facebook.
not
We're
quite.
getting a little bit of feedback that maybe they're not seeing us on Facebook, and asked to just hold on one second before we go any further, because we don't want anybody to miss this really exciting, basically, time together in my kitchen.
All right, perfect. Well, it looks like we've got Mishka and Molly back again. I know we see y'all a lot, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us repeatedly. We love being able to get this information out here, and we're so excited for y'all to come back. So if like I say, if you're here, if this is your multiple second or third time, just let us know, and let us know where you're from.
I know. It's kind of my favorite thing that we're getting to see all of, I don't know, my new favorite people popping up. So we're making lots of friends here. Um, it's over there. I know it's just people we get to see over and over again, and we're developing these friendships with it. And Chris, I know we're trying to get over to Facebook. So can you double check the Slack for me and just take a peek at that and see if we can maybe get live to Facebook, because we don't want anybody missing out on that. So the situation today, if you guys are just joining us, is, well, one, we're working through some Facebook technical issues. I think all of America is spending more time on Facebook, so we've got that going on. But today we're taking some time to celebrate one of our favorite things, DNA. So if you're just catching up with us, we're going to tell you today, one, a little bit about DNA, how DNA works, and then we're going to talk a little bit about an experiment. And I'm going to see if I can't actually visually show you DNA by the end of our broadcast.
Well, and I know we've got a lot of folks that are asking to see some cats, and while these aren't live cats, these are some of my kind of favorite kind of little cat memes that I was able to find this week.
Oh my gosh, stop.
I know. I felt like the second one was just so perfect for our genetic talk today.
I think memes are probably my favorite thing coming out of all of this. These are great. And
I know.
I'm looking at this matching parts one. It is so great. I
I
think that's part of what makes people wonder a lot about DNA, really, is these crazy patterns, these crazy combinations. Now, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this for sure.
mhm.
Um, let's see. I'm hoping that they've got us over there on Facebook.
Quite yet. That's a little bit. We're still working through that. Still working through that on there, but
That's
Well,
all right. That's all right. It's really fun. We have these different options. So I'm really excited that we've got several people joining us on Zoom. So we've got people to, join us for this conversation today here in Zoom, which is like a really fun platform, but it does facilitate our Facebook feed. So it's kind of what we've got to get combined. Alicia, we're excited you're here today. Kitties, I love everybody's talking these conversations. 5 kitties, so excited to learn more about that. I'm loving all of these comments. People, that's just it, is we have so many different people with different cats and different types of cats and even litter mates. And so we always kind of wonder about their DNA, how the DNA looks, matches, is different. So that's what we're diving into. You guys are being so patient. Thanks so much.
well, and yeah, and Megan, you mentioned that three of your cats are siblings, and they all look so different. And that's actually one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about today. All of those litter mates and kind of just the basics of how litter mates become different and why that's really so important for the health of the species as cats.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and one thing that we are able to do, what we're expanding on, and that we really appreciate about DNA, to tie into what you're saying honestly about health, is these genetic markers, right? So I'm looking at these comments and the kitty names, it's making me laugh. Like, these genetic health markers are something we're going to dive into in this conversation today, because it's one of the biggest assets from the veterinary side we can find wrapped up in that DNA. So we've got, some really exciting stuff to talk about. With this DNA and dive into it. Looks like we're not working out these Facebook issues today, guys. This is frustrating. So I think we're just gonna roll on.
We are, and we will, this will be recorded. We'll repost it on Facebook, and we're so sorry about that. We're so sorry. All right. Well,
that's all right. I mean, right? Technical issues, you do what you got to do. So, and everybody's like, "Hey, wait, we're in Zoom. We're here. We're ready to jump in." So, meanwhile, like I said, we're getting to know about it. Lee's got some litter mates, so Stars and Stripes will be fun to learn about a little bit more. Angie says she's got 4 spoiled brats. Those are my favorite. That's my favorite breed. I don't know if we've got genetic coding for spoiled brat, but I know I've got at least 2 of those in my house, at least a good part of them. So we're excited to see all you guys today too, and to learn more about your kitties.
Yeah, and with Pixel and Tiggy, we're excited that you're all here as well.
That's it. And keep those questions rolling in that chat as we move through.
Perfect. And I know we are on Zoom today, but once we do get Facebook back up and rolling as well, always click the like and subscribe in Facebook on that top right hand corner, and that will help us know when we go live, and also like our events that are coming up as well. Now, when we start talking about genetics, oh my goodness, I know we're going to start rolling into this. It's so, one of the very most interesting things is how genetics forms the building blocks of our cats and of ourselves. One of the really interesting, cats have 19 pairs of chromosomes, which is a little different from humans. Humans have 23, which is why 23andMe is named 23andMe.
Makes sense.
I know, it was a good rhyming scheme from them, very good rhyming scheme from them. And that really is, the variations with all of those each chromosomes allows us to have the variations we see in coat and immune responses and organ responses, and in a really vast, wide variety.
So this vast, wide variety, this is where you and I get into these conversations, right? Because the variety to me is the fun, the confusion, it's all of it. Because for me, I think about all this different variety that can happen, but we're always just talking about the same 2 sets of parents. And so for me, it blows my mind that we can take 2 individuals and we can create thousands of different people out of that. People, I guess, characteristics, traits, right? And then we get this whole litter of kitties who may or may not look alike at all. They might look totally different. And to me, that's just so hard for my brain to wrap around. So wrap other people's brains around that if you can, the way you did mine.
Yeah, sure thing. Now, we hear a lot about how 50% of the genetics come from the mother and 50% come from the father. And so, with all of those pairs, with all those pairs of chromosomes, when you know, when the father donates DNA and the mother donates DNA, they each donate kind of one pair of those chromosomes. And so then they match up so that the kitten can have 19 pairs of those chromosomes. Now, like Beckie said, the first thing that we think about is, well, why don't we then see basically 4 types of animals come out of this just with all the different matchings? You know, why wouldn't all our litter mates be that similar? And it really happens in the creation of those pairs. Basically, before the father donates the DNA, or the mother, you know, before one of the parents donates the DNA, the 2 chromosome pairs get really close, and then they separate back up. And so what happens during this really close phase is small sections actually change places on the pair. So it kind of a random assortment happens as well. And that allows us to have kittens that have vastly different colorings, vastly different characteristics in these kind of random combinations, but in a general sense of the term, from the mother and the father.
I think it's so fascinating, right?
It is. And it, like, I mean, we talked about it. You mentioned yesterday, you know, like even in 13 kittens, we can have different. And the reality is even thousands and thousands and thousands of kittens. Oh my goodness. And I see one coming across to
genetic perfection, excuse me. Genetic perfection has joined us.
Titan. Oh, Titan.
He's always in it for just like a cute, like quick appearance, and I pay attention to him. He's like, "Let me get out of here." And you know why he's up here, because he knows I'm up to something good and he wants to be a part of it. Now, I guess tabby cat's a perfect example, right? Because we sometimes see coat and color pattern traits. Where does tabby fall into this whole mix of things, and how can we see the difference in colors and tabby, right? So tabby as a pattern and not a color, because I've seen orange tabbies and gray tabbies and even some tabby pattern in black cats.
Right. Well, and now you're getting into almost coat colors and coat patterns themselves. So these are all located on different locations. So, and so this is where we kind of have to start to see and think things, because not always, the pattern's not always with the color. Now, some are, depending on their location, but a lot of times they're separated out. So when they kind of do that mixing, they can come down. Now, we also need to think about dominant versus recessive traits and patterns. This is really interesting when it starts to come to the coat coloring itself. And, you know, one of the easiest ways that we can explain it is in human eyes. That's one of the most obvious and straightforward ways. And it happens very similarly in coat colors themselves. And really what you have is you can have dominant traits or recessive traits. And now a dominant trait means that when those chromosome pairs, when those 2 sets of DNA came together to form a kitten, one of the traits is strong enough that it will always be expressed, even if there's only 1 copy of it. And now what a recessive trait means that it's kind of a weaker trait. It's a little shyer. So we don't see it as commonly, and it has to have 2 copies to be actually expressed. So if we think about in humans, brown eyes is a dominant trait. So you only have to have 1 copy of that brown-eyed color to get brown eyes. But blue eyes is a recessive trait. So we need 2 copies of the recessive blue trait to get a blue eye itself, which makes it a little, that's why blue eyes are rare and a little less common to find.
Yeah. Wow. Not in this house. Well, you know, I think it's so amazing because we do see this, and obviously we think about this like with our kids. You know, it's really funny. I look at my nieces and they look just like my sister and I did as kids, and I think like we're just generations of replicas that way, you know. And then we see our cats, whether they're litter mates or not, and we see the way that their genetics are affecting them from a visual standpoint. But let's talk a little about genetics and personality traits. Tell me like what you know there. How connected are they or aren't they?
You know, there is, personality traits are really one of the things that we're really looking at right now. And if you all have done if you've gotten our test, please do the phenotype survey. It helps us learn more and more about our personality traits and how these may affect our cats as well. But personality traits, you know, we believe that there's, you know, some sort of base genetic influence at this point in time. We're still working on exactly how much that is, because just like humans, cats have different experiences during their lives. So it kind of forms a little bit of this base foundation, and then these different experiences can shift how those personalities change. One of the most interesting examples, and we got a question about this beforehand, was, you know, if a feral cat has kittens, are those kittens going to be feral? And that in itself is actually, you know, just because the cat is feral, the kittens themselves aren't guaranteed to have that fairly non, you know, social personality. If they're if they're found as kittens and kind of socialized in that very young age, they can certainly grow up to be normal, I say normal, kind of domesticated and socialized
Sure.
house cats themselves.
Sure, and it's like Sarah's saying, it's nature versus nurture, and we know that there are elements on both sides, and that when we are given the right environment, we can kind of develop those traits and even really develop genetics, right? Like that's how we evolve.
Yeah, I mean, that is how we evolve. There are a lot of pressures that happen around evolution. It's kind of, or rather natural selection is the term that we'll use, because we can see that in a much more short term. And that's, this association, this chromosome random assortment and creation from each parent is what allows that to happen. It allows that growth into adapt to pressures that we didn't know were going to exist, which is a really, really amazing evolutionary aspect that's found in all organism. I mean, they were built with this code that self-updates and helps them patch and to survive in an ever-changing world. I mean, that in itself is just personally astounding.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really fascinating. Okay, so two things we're getting tons of questions about are going to be
Yeah.
allergies, and I think it's partially allergy season. That's why it's on everyone's mind. I got the warning here in North Carolina, and in case anyone cares, it's very high grass pollen, high tree, no, I can't remember what the other one was, but like, so the grass is a bad time to be here in North Carolina if grass is your issue. But for a lot of pets, grass is an issue, right? Like we know pets have allergies. And we know that we see asthma as a specific problem in cats. So we had some questions about cats and asthma, and then also hyperallergenic cats in general. So I kind of want to talk about DNA, how that affects allergies, and how it affects them maybe not being allergic.
Well, that is a very complicated question. That's a very complicated question on there. We're still learning a lot more. Unfortunately, I'm going to have a lot of answers as we're still learning exactly how those affect.
Sure.
When we start to get into those, they have so many different effects within the immune system, and then also, again, what a cat's been exposed to over its lifetime. Interestingly enough, we are starting to see the incidence of feline asthma rise. And we're not entirely sure why that is happening. That's just a general population term at this point. And so that we don't know if that's related to genetics or related to an ever-changing environment as cats are living more and more indoors with humans as well. But still, we are looking into that from there. With allergies, certainly genetic predisposition does occur. We have seen that of humans. We've seen that in cats as well. The level of that genetic predisposition, we're still exactly trying to pinpoint how much it affects that foundation towards allergies versus what they were exposed to throughout their life.
That's so interesting, isn't it? And you make a good point, because I know, all of the world is into true crime right now, right? So we're learning tons and tons about true crime. So we're all talking about DNA. And it's really interesting because when I listen to these things, so much of these cases are being broken based on DNA. Like we know, like Golden State Killer and all that, and like lineage DNA. But it's really only been since like the 90s and like late 90s that we've been really like learning and applying. So when we say we're still learning about this, like sometimes here in 2020, we're like, what do you mean we're still learning about this? But like we really are. This is new science, right?
This is very, very new science. There is, when we start to think about, in DNA itself, in kind of the cat's genetic codes, we have millions and millions and millions upon different areas that can affect the outcomes of it all. And that in itself, starting to break down all of those millions of areas is complicated when you start to compare it back to a life. Even in humans, where we've been much more aggressive in our science and in our studies for humans, we're now really starting to get to the point where that almost that hype that's been around genetics for a while is starting to turn into a potential reality. But we have a little bit in humans been on a hype train for a while. It's just because of the amount of data that we still need, and that really still only applies to almost kind of our Western-based heritages and ethnicities. We just haven't had as much testing done in the human population relative to ethnicities found in the Eastern Hemisphere people.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's so new, which is actually really exciting because it means there's a lot to come, right? Like we have a lot that we're going to continue to learn and to know about our cats' diseases and them themselves. To that point, Sarah had two really good questions I'm going to throw at you here.
Okay.
One, polydactylism. I mean, do we love anything more than a cat with like tons of toes? I mean, give me all the toe beans. I can't get enough.
All of them, all 27 of them.
As many.
So polydactylism, but polydactylism itself is what's known as an autosomal dominant trait. And so that means that you only need one copy of that to pass that on. So it is kind of one of the more simpler physical characteristics that we do see within our cats, and is very noticeable. And people love them as well. While you're just doing mad science over there away. But yeah, and
Ew.
I know. I love the mad scientist right now. And so that means you only need one copy of that to pass on the extra toes trait. The amount of toes themselves can vary, but you only do need that one autosomal dominant trait.
I want can we inject polydactylism into cats in the future? Is this something we can elect? Like, I need litters of polydactyl kittens.
Oh my goodness. I don't think we're doing too much of that injecting of DNA to too many things. We'll get away from that line.
So would we consider it a genetic mutation? Would we consider it to be, what do we classify that as when it happens? And have we seen any, I guess it would probably be phenome at this point, right? Data saying that it's associated with any type of breed.
Well, so since it is autosomal dominant, it is kind of easier to maintain within a population. Or kind of see within a population as it maintains. So whenever we think of something that's dominant, since only one copy has to be passed on, it has that higher chance of being passed on instead of needing two copies to be passed on. And so, from a breed standpoint, it may be more associated with lines within breeds themselves because of the way that goes on from there. But I'm not too sure of any, huge breed standards that want the polydactylism within the cats. There aren't very many negatives. There can be a few negatives to having polydactylism. I see Kathleen was asking about that as well. If you have too many toes, things start to get a little weird in the foot. It's not really meant to, have 7 or 8, particularly relating to the nails themselves growing back around and growing back into the paws, just because they don't get the same amount of scratching or kind of clipping or wear that normal nails would as well. So that's really the biggest one that we see, but you can manage them usually pretty easily.
I think that's a great, and then, I have a little stir in my hand. I need to put it down because I talk with my hands, and now I'm just going to start shaking it at you. This is the other thing, and I think it's a great question about genetics and how they tie together, is obesity. We know obesity is like a huge problem in cats. Are we finding genetic associations with that?
We are looking for those right now. We're looking for those right now, particularly related to our study and our interest in type 2 diabetes. We're seeing an increase in type 2 diabetes in cats, just like we are with humans. And we don't quite know where that's coming from. We don't know if that's coming from a genetic standpoint, from a food standpoint, or from really some sort of different lifestyle standpoint as well. There may be conversions. We can dive into that in an entirely different one. We've got a full thing to talk about. It's very, very interesting, but we'd love to be able to know which cats are more prone to obesity to help make sure that we don't get them to that point, because cats, once they get big, can be such a slow process to get all that weight off of them that we want to make sure that we help prevent that.
I mean, absolutely. We know there's so many diseases for sure. Well, so keep those questions rolling in because we are loving them. But I think it's time I explain a little bit more about why I'm in my kitchen and what that has to do with DNA. Can I get into it?
Of course. Now, I know you've been just running the mad scientist. So where did the mad scientist start? Where did mad scientist start? You're obviously in the middle, but where do you begin?
Like genetically?
Oh no!
In my lineage? Fun story. In my DNA, there's actually I come from a long line of medical professionals and science-based learners. So I wonder if that is not actually genetic. It'd be interesting to see that if my love for science was in my genes, because my grandfather was a doctor, my mom's a registered nurse. My great grandfather was a doctor, and my uncle is actually a rocket scientist. No pressure here as I show you my DNA experiment because I'm not sure I'm on that high level. But when you and I were talking about how we can really celebrate DNA Day, and you and I, lineage or not, are science brains, right? So we are really into the science of DNA. We wanted to figure out some way to bring an activity into this like we do cats and coffee, right? So we love to draw whiskers on our face, make litter box cakes, you need it. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, how can we make this really cool? And what did I ask you if we could do?
Well, you wanted to figure out if we could find DNA in bananas.
That's right. So is a fun activity for you guys at home. It is actually really not that hard to extract DNA from fruit. So it's Wednesday afternoon. What else would I be doing at home this afternoon than extracting DNA from fruit? So I'm going to give you a really quick rundown of how this works, what you need, because you probably have all of it in your house right now. And if you don't, next time you go shopping or get out of your house, you might be able to get the ingredients. But this is a really fun activity to do with your kids, or if you just want to visualize DNA. So all you actually need is a banana, arguably somewhere to a half to a whole. So I've got my bananas back there. I've already used mine. So we grab a banana and we mush it like as much as we can. Mm-hmm. So into a Ziploc bag here, mush, 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 mush. I actually blew my bag out mushing it. So heads up, cautionary tale on that. It can happen. Be careful. So mush, mush, mush. You're then going to take some hot salt water. Handy, right? So hot water, add in just regular table salt is all you need. So make a little bit of salt water. All the instructions for this also are all over the internet. You guys know I love to infringe. So I didn't invent this. Somebody else did this. And you can find tons of videos on YouTube. You can do this from all kinds of different fruits. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. So, all right. We have mushed banana. We have hot soapy water. Nope. We have hot salty water. We put that in with our banana, mix it up. Since I blew the bottom out, I'm not going to do that here. You know why. Mix that all up. The next thing you're going to need is just a little bit of dish soap, and you're going to put just a few drops of half tablespoon of dish soap into the banana water mixture and really gently mix it. So you want to be gentle here because you don't want it to get a ton of bubbles. So mix everything all in there good. This is where it gets sciencey. You're going to take a filter and a coffee filter and a funnel, and you're going to put it over some kind of clear fluted glass was sort of what they said. And so to me, I heard champagne flute. So in our house, we're doing science with champagne flutes. These are plastic. So filter the banana goo into a fluted cup. Okay. Mm-hmm. Once all of your banana water has settled into your fluted cup, you're going to take some cold, pre-cooled alcohol, which when I brought this up, we were informed this actually stays in a safe in my house right now because we know you can't get any of that anywhere. So don't track my IP address and come steal my alcohol. So what you end up with is banana water and alcohol separated. You want to be really careful to try to keep the alcohol separated and floating right on top, okay? Mm-hmm. What's going to happen is once you do this, the DNA strands separate out into the banana water. I'm calling it banana water. I'm sure there's something better than that. So I'm going to show you guys, you can sort of start to see the cloudiness there at the bottom. Do you see the DNA strands sort of coming up?
Yeah, like
they're resting on top right now. So you can take a wooden in my case, skewer, because we like to grill. And you can separate these strands right out. This is what I was doing when you called me out about mad sciencing. And if you guys look, this is actual legit DNA strands separated out from the banana. This took literally maybe 15, 20 minutes to do this entire experiment, start to finish, and you can actually see the DNA strands. So one thing I kind of wanted to talk about was, why can you see the DNA strands, right? We got a great question. Isn't DNA microscopic? So what would make it that we could actually be seeing real DNA in this case, Dr. Chris?
Well, you know, when part of that, when you're extracting it and pulling up, is you're also concentrating it as well. So that if we think about just a single little tiny piece of DNA, that would be so small and so hard to find. But when you concentrate it all together, it'll start to kind of curl in on itself from there and become more visible, and actually really be able to be seen and touched in that standpoint.
I think that it's incredibly fascinating that we can take something microscopic that actually develops us as who we are and find a way to visualize it. So I hope you guys do this experiment at home just for fun if you've got kids or extra bananas. And, show us your pictures. Share it with us on our Facebook and our Instagram. And make sure, speaking of our Facebook and Instagram, you're following it. We have had lots of really exciting things going on over there. And I think we have something exciting going on actually right when we're done.
Yeah, right at, well, it depends on where you are, at the next kind of at noon Pacific. So the next hour, noon Pacific or 2 Central, 3 Eastern, our CEO, Ann Skye, is going to be hosting Shelby from Foster Kitten Love on our Instagram Live. So hop on over there and see that little interview. Shelby has done some great things as well, and we love to be able to give her a platform to talk.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Also, while you're over there, you'll see a little bit about the Basepaws challenge. Dr. Chris, have you been watching these really cool hashtag pictures coming in of cats finding elevated space?
I have. They've been finding some good, great, interesting spaces, and are so cute. So cute getting up there.
I can't get enough of it. I'm always doing these challenges as like, how can I get more cat pictures in my life? Like, what challenge can I make them send me pictures? You guys might already be onto me. So if you haven't already joined the Basepaws challenge, it's hashtag Basepaws challenge. This week, it's all about healthy homes for healthy cats. Maybe that's the other reason I'm in my kitchen sharing my healthy home with you guys. We've already posted the first goal. So that's, again, we talked about it, elevated cat spaces. There's a video up on Facebook and in Instagram, describes more in detail about what this goal is all about, as well as how you can join. We're going to post 4 more videos with 4 more goals throughout this week. We're going to pick a winner next Wednesday during Cats and Coffee right here next Wednesday. We've already got those fabulous submissions. We want to see your cats lounging in elevated spaces and all the other pictures throughout the week. So don't forget Facebook, Instagram, follow, share, hashtag Basepaws challenge.
I know. Oh, and there's so many. Oh my goodness, we have so many good questions that we still have to work through, and so much coming up. Now we also have on this Friday, we have a webinar with Dr. Ken Lambrick and Dr. Bar Hadar, talking about kind of telemedicine and then also obesity as well. There are some great resources. Dr. Lambrick has been running a challenge to help, or kind of a contest and challenge to help cats lose weight for years and years and years. And he is such a great resource when we start to talk about how we manage obesity and behavior in cats. Oh my goodness. Oh,
and we've got so much really fun stuff. We've got a lot of great, minds that we've been joining up with here lately and diving in with. So, again, don't forget Saturday, National DNA Day. That's why we want to celebrate with these events. So we're really celebrating again at Basepaws, our most favorite holiday, DNA Day. Do you have your DNA tree up, Chris?
My DNA tree? I mean, I'm still working on it. It's going to be made from scratch. The bananas are on order, so that I can get enough to sculpt a little DNA tree.
That's right. I mean, and Kathleen made the comment, it'd be much cooler if I had a microscope attached to my computer to show the DNA. So the cool thing is you don't need a microscope to actually see the DNA. Probably a better camera on your computer than I have is what you really need. But you're totally right. That being said, if I had a microscope on my camera, I would be looking at everything under it, to be perfectly honest. Because I think everything under the microscope is really cool. It's part of what brought me into veterinary medicine.
Mhm.
But it made me think about Linnell's question, which is, what is the coolest thing that cat's DNA can tell us?
Oh my goodness. That is, my favorite thing about what a cat's DNA can tell us. Um, and it's one of the things that we're starting to work on and add into kind of the physical trait markers that are coming up, is how all of these different co-patterns can really mix into creating this beautiful, beautiful variation in fur, whether it be solid coats or coats that are ticked or coats that are tabbied or coats that are um, heat activated like the Siamese. It's just so amazing to me, like the kind of that visual that we get to see from the DNA itself. It's beautiful. It really is.
And I think it's one of the really cool things about DNA is what we have yet to learn. So the biggest thing I think is that we're going to continue to learn and grow and take better care of our cats, better cats of our care. That's all I want to do. We'll take better care of our cats. Oh, so Sarah wanted to explain a little better about this heat activated thing. This is one of my favorite things about genes and cats in general. Will you explain a little bit more about these heat activated genes? Because that's amazing.
Well, so it's actually the coloring in the Siamese, kind of that point coloring, where we see that basically it's a form of albinism where the coat should be all white, but in the areas where there's not as much heat, so kind of right around the center of the face in that area, the color will actually develop because of the lack of heat from there. Other than that, it maintains that whiteness. So there is all of those different areas actually match up to kind of a little bit of a heat map that goes on. And it's so
amazing.
Yeah, right. It's just truly fascinating. It truly is.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things about it. The heat response in genes. I remember when I learned about that in school, it blew my mind. I thought that was one of the neatest things out there. So, Siamese are fascinating. Are there any other cats out there that have heat genes associated with their color pattern? Is there, any other DNA really associated that way? Because I think that was one of the neatest things I learned.
It's pretty unique. It's pretty unique on there. We don't see that as often. Normally, we just see that, the coat patterns themselves express the appropriate color. And then, of course, just like us, as they age, those patterns can dilute down and get a little gray as well.
Yeah, that's really neat. All right. So that's my favorite thing about DNA, by the way. So I think other people have really are enjoying that tidbit as well, with all these questions pouring in, talking about those types of things. So I guess the question keeps coming up in terms of health. And so we talk about health markers a little bit. Can you maybe give us like a really Reader's Digest version of like, what do we really know in terms of like DNA and health, and what can we really truly track? You've said a lot of things we're trying to learn more about, but what do we actually know now in terms of DNA and health?
Yeah, so right now we're tracking and can diagnose or kind of understand the risks for diseases that have very clear kind of inheritance patterns. So autosomal dominant diseases that they only needed one copy, and we've got a disease state going on. So like polycystic kidney disease. This was extremely common in Persian cats and a lot of the breeds that were developed from Persians, because it was so easy to pass on. Only one copy was needed. So we're tracking diseases like that, as well as other diseases that are autosomal recessive that need two copies to become to allow the disease to really fully see. And so those kind of singular mutations that allow a disease state to happen are what we are tracking right now and really understanding about from a genetic health. We're in the process of learning more and more about the other various diseases that may be more and more complicated, that have multiple genes involved on them. But we've started, just like we've started in human medicine, that same pathway where we start with these almost what they call low-hanging fruit from a genetic sense on there. And so we do have those. Those are within our health marker test. We are tracking 16 diseases with 38 different markers. And then we're also working on adding more. That'll be hopefully coming up here in the next little bit. We've been a little bit delayed with our development schedule with some COVID, but we are still working towards that direction.
I think that's one of my favorite things about being part of Basepaws is the fact that those are all things we're working toward. You know, we want healthy, happy cats, and that we're really working so hard to figure out what those things are and how much we can identify, and then what to do with that information when we get it. So, you know, I really, truly, I think it's an amazing thing, and I'm so proud to be a part of that. And again, learning all this amazing stuff about genetics and all of the things that we're learning along the way. It's really fascinating. Some cool questions here about tuxedos. You know, I have a fiercely private tuxedo cat. She does not march about the way my tabby cat does. She maintains her dignity and her privacy. But when we have a two-toned cat of any kind, but like a black and white, what does that look like? Is that like one black cat and one white cat?
Well, that would be the like say that would be really interesting if we could blend them just like that. But unfortunately, it is not quite that easy on there. Now, when we start to think about tuxedo cats, they themselves have usually what we have a white spotting gene. So they have an overall kind of black coat gene that then they kind of blend in with a little bit of white spotting that allows for those white patches to come up and create these various different formats.
I think it's just amazing. I mean, when you think about that, and we kind of classify them that way, right? Like we've got our tuxedos and our tabbies. We almost talk about them when they're the way they're breeds, as opposed to, you know, I would never say like, oh, I've got a black and tan, you know, with my dogs. We always talk about their actual breeds, but we talk about the coats almost like that is their breed in general, because it does sort of also seem to link a little bit to who they are, right? I mean, I know we say things about calicos and torties and their dispositions of being quite communicative about their concerns in life. And I think it's kind of neat where we see the personalities and the coats. And now this is different from genetics, right? So when we talk about the genome and the phenome, that's different, right? So maybe just before we get too far, let's just talk about kind of how those fall differently.
Well, so we've used the words genome and we've used the words phenome a little bit. And the difference between those is what we physically see. So that's what the phenome is. So whether that be the coat color, the coat length, and even down to things like the bone structure or the organ structure or how the immune system works. That's all the phenome or the phenotypic expression. Now the genome itself is the actual code, kind of that foundation. And so whether it be the dominant and recessive pairs or, you know, however these are matched up, whenever it's read out, it helps create the phenome. It's really that foundation of what the cat is built on or how the cat is built from an organizational standpoint.
I think it's fascinating. That's one thing we're also learning more about with all of these amazing folks who participate in our in all of these surveys that we send out. We're learning more about how breeds and genetics are associated with these personalities and these phenome, all this data we're getting. So I think that's really great. Great questions, you guys. I think we're gonna have to wrap up here pretty soon, right, Chris? But we come back to all of these questions. We will make sure we get back to you and follow up, you know, so we're answering all your questions. So don't hesitate to throw a few more at us before we finish up.
I know, and I know we're all in Zoom today. We're not on Facebook. We'll pick them up and we'll put them back down towards Facebook or in the blog. So just keep an eye out and they will come back around, I promise.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to get to all of your questions. We love them. I learn. I see my mom's on here, so I'm shouting out my mom. Hi, Mom. Thanks for being here. Yay. Hashtags for the photos, just so you guys know, is going to be hashtag Basepaws Challenge.
Yes, and keep, you know, like I say, join with us, the hashtag Basepaws Challenge. It's so many, like I say, we are feeding Beckie's addiction to cute cat pictures, as well as just learning so much more about what makes cats comfortable and how to really kind of catify and think about your home just like a cat. And Beckie, I know you're doing something very exciting that we launched this week, aren't you?
It's my favorite thing, you guys. This is actually like my favorite thing to do. So if you don't already know, Coach My Cat fully launched this week. I know there's tons of information. It's out there on our Facebook, our Instagram, and our website. Coach My Cat is basically an opportunity for you guys to join up as a community but to get one-on-one time with yours truly to work through your cat concerns, whether they're behavioral, nutritional, emotional, physical, whatever's going on with you and your cat. You get one-on-one time with me. We chat it out. We talk about what's going on. We also track your cat's behaviors from week to week. Some of them, the physiological stuff they do, some of them, the behaviors they have. And it helps for you to create a data set to really track your pet's behavior changes, things like that, concerns. So if you have a concern you're working through that you just, whatever's going on, you can come on in, we'll work through it. But if you also are just like, hey, I just want to know what more we could know, come over to Coach My Cat. It's what we do. We cover all of it, start to finish, and whatever personalized attention you need, I'm there for it. So I get to know all my cats, all my people. I love it. So if you guys want some one-on-one time, and I want to get to know your cats, and it's another way for me to get more cat pictures. So that's two for me.
All the cat pictures, all the cat pictures. Oh, all right. Well, Beckie, thank you so much for your time being here and showing us your mad scientist experiment. We're going to wrap up. Remember, Anna Skaya, our CEO, is going to be live in just about 14 minutes.
She's giving stuff away.
She is giving things away as well. So join on there and see if you can win that giveaway. And then we will see y'all back on Friday for another webinar about obesity with Dr. Ken Lambert and Dr. Bar Hadar.
Oh, they're the best. They are the absolute best. You guys, we are giving you all the smart people that we can, all the information we can, because we love you. We love your cats. So make sure you're checking us out. All the information you need, anything you're looking for. Hey, what are we doing? When are we doing it? You can find it on our Facebook and over on our Instagram. So make sure you follow our social media. That's what we got for today, yeah?
That's all we got for today, but we will be back next week. We'll be talking a little bit about kittens and how they grow and play. So it'll be a fun, like say, a fun way for us to harvest more cute kitten pictures as well.
All the pictures, please. Head up this way.
All right, y'all have a great week, and we will talk to y'all soon. Stay safe.
Bye.